Good morning. Happy Sunday. And I was thinking today about how great it is to have Jesus Christ in my life. And it got me to thinking back when I first received the Lord. And, I was so happy about receiving forgiveness and salvation. But then I was thinking, these are not ends in themselves. We didn't just receive forgiveness and salvation for no reason. God saves us so that he can transform us. And, if you think about it, transformation speaks about change. And that's where it gets a little more complicated because change is never comfortable, is it? And the thing is that we know suddenly we get this understanding that there needs to be a change, that we need to be conformed and more into Jesus's character and personality. But the thing is that we won't be able to change if we don't have the capacity to see what has to be changed. So we need something else in the mix, and that something else is humility, and it's something I want to talk to you about today. Francis Frangipane described humility as the spiritual faculty that enables us to perceive our need. And for us at RCF this year, the word that we received at the beginning of the year was grace upon grace, that God would supply every grace according to the need as it occurs. And we're holding on to that word, right? And yet James 4:6 says, God resists the proud and gives that grace to the humble, gives grace to the humble. And what I've come to understand is that, see, God resists the proud because actually the proud resists God. It's not like God is trying to be mean or set up, some kind of impossible way to actually earn his grace. Jesus Christ supplied that way for us. It's just that the proud resist God because they already think that they know how it works, and there's really no need to ask God for any further help. But unlike pride, humility has to be put on. Take a look at Colossians 3:12. It has to be put on. In other words, it has to be a consistent and conscious decision and an action if it's going to be added to our character. And even at that, it's only by God's grace that we're able to even achieve it, to have it. Spiritual humility then is a created attribute of character that's formed in us through our relationship, a deliberate relationship, the deliberate contact and interaction with God, and not just a once a week deal, twice a week, but learning to rely on the presence of God and having a conversation open with him. That's what it means to be in prayer consistently. Pray without ceasing, as Paul put it. Having this conversation line open with God consistently, that's the way that we're able to develop this character of humility. And of all the virtues, Jesus said that humility is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. If you look at Matthew 18:4, he called these, they were asking him about who was the greatest in heaven and the kingdom of heaven. And he brought a little child there and he said, you need to be like this little child. You need to be humble like this little child. And that would make you or qualify you to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. See, because there's no other virtue that can enter our lives except that humility requests it to come. Right? If you think you're set, you're not going to be asking for any of the virtues. But if you have humility to see, then you'll see the lack and you'll believe that God will give you the grace upon grace of what's lacking so that you continue your spiritual progress. See, because the thing is, you can be very religious and yet still have no sense of attachment to your personal needs, spiritual needs. Religion in a way can actually get in your way. It can sometimes mask the sinfulness and become part of our false self that we've talked about in the past. That part of us that we project to the world, that we actually, after a while, start to believe that that's who we are, our identity. I know for me, when when I came to the Lord initially, I saw myself as an entertainer. This is what I was, this is not just what I did, it was who I was. And Jesus interacted with me and sort of took the ball peen hammer to that. He was saying, Roy, there's more. There's more. You're more than what you're projecting. And I want to show you what that is. See, because if he didn't take that ball peen hammer, I would have stayed asleep. And I would have been unaware that there was even a need for change. And because of that, I wouldn't have changed. There would be no change if I didn't realize that I needed a change. You see what I'm saying? You need to be awake in order to ask for and receive the grace that's necessary for change. I mean, think about Paul, who's Saul of Tarsus. Before his conversion, he was like the super religious guy. He saw himself. He considered himself blameless before God. And then he met Jesus along the road, and sort of Jesus devastated that opinion of himself. Just as the Lord met Saul and converted him, transformed him into Paul the Apostle on that road to Damascus, so will he meet us on our life's roll and demask us. He'll expose the vileness of our hearts to us. See, he knows it already. He'll remove the mask of pride and self-importance, which then will allow us to continue in our spiritual growth. Now, I said before that change never feels good. Well, this certainly does not feel good when that happens. You start to see the vileness of your own heart. Doesn't feel good. But the truth is, it'll result in putting you on that path to humility. And it's on that path that we can receive the transformative grace that we need to continue on in the Spirit. See, because it's that humility that will keep us on the road and not in the ditches, not the distractions along the way, so that we can go from grace to grace, to press on, to continue to go through the doors as God brings them to our consciousness. So in a sense, that humility then is the path of progress in the Spirit. Because every time that we humble ourselves under the mighty hand of God, we're advancing spiritually. Why? Because God, if you look at that scripture, that's in 1 Peter 5:6. As you look at that, it says that God then will come in and set his power against that spirit of self-focus and pride and keep us on the track. Every time that we embrace meekness, and meekness doesn't mean weak, it just means teachable. Every time we're teachable, we're embracing sustained transformation. That's awesome. We're embracing that spirit of Christ, who said, learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart. Learn of me. He's saying, not just to intellectually learn of me, but to understand me, to understand the power of my humility, the power that has come to me through the Father because of my submission. And if we will set ourselves to learn of him, we'll receive the rest for our souls, from that striving that we have in our lives, the rest of our souls. And we'll understand the power of his humility. Philippians 2:5-8 says that although he existed in the very form of God, speaking of Jesus, he humbled himself and became man, and then further humbled himself by becoming obedient to death for our sake. So I've set a goal for my life, to seek that grace. I need that grace, but it can only be accessed through my teachableness, my humility to seek, to realize that I have need. Because my goal is really to dwell more deeply into the nature of Jesus, to learn of him in that manner. And I feel that we're in a day right now that seems very troubling. There's certainly chaos and all kinds of negative things that are pressing in around us. But this didn't get this didn't get away from God. He's still in control. So when I think of it that way, I realize that God is creating or allowing this day as a time of awakening for those who are seeking Him. It's a time of reset. Set our priorities to see what our identity is. Where are we going with this? How do we get there? It's a day for the transformation of our hearts, to be transformed more into the heart of Jesus. So I believe that there's a word in Zephaniah that I think describes this day. It's Zephaniah 3:11 through 12. He says, "In that day you will feel no shame because of all your deeds by which you have rebelled against me. Then I will remove from your midst your proud, exalting ones, and you will never again be haughty on my holy mountain. But I will leave among you a humble and lowly people, and they will take refuge in the name of the Lord. The name of the Lord is a high tower. The righteous run into it," right? And are safe. Only the humble will be able to receive that grace, to be able to take refuge in God. See, because grace, is not only unmerited favor, it's the power to do what we can't naturally do. Grace is power. Now listen to this promise that the prophet Isaiah gave to the humble. This is Isaiah 57:18. So for thus says the high and exalted one who lives forever, whose name is holy. I dwell on a high and holy place, and also with the contrite and lowly of spirit, in order to revive or awaken the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. Think of that. God dwells in heaven and yet still says that He abides with the humble. Certainly something to strive for. See, because being contrite means that you realize that there's a need for change, and then to be repentant and humble enough to seek God for the grace to do so, to do what we naturally can't do. It's not built into us. We have to put on holiness, put on humility as well. So I want to invite you today to join me in asking God for this grace, to be able to see, to wake up, to reset, set our priorities correct. When you think about it, the greatest voice that spoke in Scripture, the most powerful voice, described Himself, now I'm talking about Jesus now, as meek and lowly of heart. "Learn of me," He said, "for I am meek and lowly of heart." Understand the power of the humility. Learn of it. Learn of me. See, and I believe that He's asking us who will follow Him today to learn of Him in the same way. Will you do it? See, because to be honest with you, there is no other how-to manual. This is it. Humility is the only path up the holy mountain to God. And I know that's all of your goal as well as mine. So God bless you today in your pursuit. And hope to see you soon. Have a good day. Bye.